right. Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome. I am your moderator, Margo, Lovett. Let me remind everyone that we are streaming live. We are broadcasting from the WomELLE Facebook page. WomELLE is hosting the Power of Women's Leadership, which is a virtual conference on October 20th and the 21st. Your ticket not only gives you access to both days of the conference, but 30 speakers, brilliant speakers, accomplished speakers. They're going live with Q&As, professional activities, and give you the opportunity to network. Today's panelists, the WomELLE cast, they're scheduled to speak during this conference. And let me go ahead and introduce you to these wonderful, awesome ladies. We're going to start out with Miss Regina Barr, who is a consultant. She is a coach, trainer, professional speaker, founder and CEO of Red Ladder. Next, we have Anisa Rashad, who is a speaker, writer, founder and CEO of Anisa Rashad Enterprises. And then we have Tana, human resources professional, speaker. She is a career and life coach, best-selling author, business consultant, and she is the brand for TanaMSessions.com. Welcome, ladies. Welcome to this session today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let's get started. Let us jump right in and talk about leadership in the business world as a whole. What does it look like in 2017?
Well, I can help get us started, Margo. Thank you so much for having us here today. I think for me, you've got to be very agile. You've got to be able to take in information, a lot of information, very quickly. We live in a 24/7 kind of media environment, whether you are in the public arena or in the private arena. We're constantly getting information, and you've got to be very flexible and nimble and quick in terms of how you deal with that, what you do with it, putting it together, dotting your I's, crossing your T's, and so forth. And I think then you have to combine that with accountability. If you're a leader and you're taking in this information and synthesizing it and making decisions, you've got to be accountable for those decisions too. So I think for me, when I'm working with leaders and talking with leaders, that's one of the things we do talk about, because things are changing so quickly, and really change is all you can count on.
So true. It's someone else. I want to hear from all of you panelists.
I'll go next. Hi. That was great, Regina. I definitely agree with you on all of that. In addition to that, I think what is happening now are leaders are having to transition from being tellers to coaching people. So you no longer are telling people what to do. You have to coach them to help them build skills, lifelong skills, whether they remain on your team, remain with your company, or transition out, but really being able to help them get to their next level of success. And that's why I think coaching as a practice has really started to take off by leaps and bounds, because organizations have realized that they need their leaders to become coaches for their teams.
I'll jump in. I, again, am Anisa Rashad. I work with leaders in Fortune 100 and 500, Fortune 500 companies every day. And the number one attribute I believe of leadership, I don't care what they say in the business books. I don't care what they say in business school. The number one attribute of a leader is being flexible. So when I think about being flexible, I get an image of, that yogi that like his body is all contorted, right? Oh, you have to be flexible, because every day we are constantly bombarded with change. So really being a good leader today, you got to be flexible, and you really have to be down with people. I believe that your people, they are your competitive advantage. It's not, your quality. It's not all these other things that we're measuring on our dashboards. It really is dialing into the people and really tapping into how to get the best out of each of your employees.
You know what, ladies, I failed to bring in Tracie L. James. She is one of the WomELLE cast today. Humblest apologies, Tracie. Can you chime in with this also?
No problem. Thank you so much. Well, one of the things I definitely will agree with all of the panelists that have shared so far, and I'm going to take it a little bit further. When you begin to really look at your people and you begin to really look at developing your people, that's the future of your organization. And we can no longer continue to operate where we consider our people to be expendable. They're replaceable. Because the truth of the matter is that's the real resource that we really need to be managing on a more effective basis, are our people. And one of the things that I do with my clients is help them create strategies that enable them to do a better job of not just saying they're delegating a task, but also delegating the authority that enables the person to be developed into the type of leader the company is going to need later.
I hear you ladies speak a lot about flexibility and developing your team. As far as going into a corporation or even taking on a client, do you find that that task is different when you're dealing with a male-dominated environment versus female? Anybody want to chime in on that?
I'll jump into that water first. And I guess for me, I started my career in the mid-90s. So at that point, I was coming out of college, and I was bright-eyed and naive, and I thought that I was about to take the world by storm. And I got hit in the face a lot because I was the youngest. I was the only woman. I was the only Black. And I had to deal with all of those things over and over again. And fast forward to today, my younger sister is in wealth management. So she's in the banking industry. She's 27 years old, and she's dealing with the same things. She's dealing with she's being discounted because she's young. She's being discounted because she's a female, and her voice isn't being heard. So being able to help her own her power so that she's able to get her voice heard, but at the same time, not step on those toes that are so easily stepped upon in those type situations.
I'll jump in also because I do a lot of work with women in banking and financial services in a broad array of industries. And what is very interesting to me, very often I talk with these women, and I rarely find that it's a competence issue, that these women are fabulously skilled and articulate and smart and hardworking. Very often it's a confidence skill. So I find the same issue that you were talking about, Tracie. They struggle to find their space or their voice. And that's one of I think the best things that we can do, especially for women, is help them to find that space, because it's not always comfortable for us, especially if we are the only woman in the room, or in your case, you mentioned being the only minority in the room, and it becomes very difficult. You know, they say three's the charm, right? It's when you have three people, 3 women, 3 minorities, etc., that those issues get taken off the table. The challenge is we're still dealing with the situation you're talking about, where we only have one of those individuals. And sadly, I still work with companies where they have no women on the senior management team or on the board. And then as a consultant, I'm the only woman in the room, and then trying to open up a space to get some of the other women to the table. So I think that problem, as you mentioned, Tracie, continues to be very real.
I think one of the things inside of corporate, I spent most of my career working inside of aerospace and defense companies. So definitely very much a male-dominated technical industry. And what I found for women is don't go through it alone. So often you may find yourself in these positions that we're talking about, but make sure you find somebody that you connect with. Oftentimes, my clientele tend to be women executives, and they talk about it being lonely at the top. And I have a joke, I always tell them, well, yeah, it is lonely. If you get to the top of the ladder, you turn around and you start sawing off the next 3 rungs so nobody else can get where you are. So when you're in those positions, if you take other women under your wing, you share those stories, you form those collaborations and those partnerships. It helps, I say, together each achieves more. So as you go up, I hope that we can all agree in 2017 that we're past the day where there can only be one woman at the table. There can only be one person of color at the table. Like at this point, we should be past that and at a place where we can help and support each other.
Yeah, you're spot on. Each of you are spot on with that. As I was listening to you, I was thinking about my own journey, and there are plenty of times when I was the only one who looked like me sitting around the table, and it was uncomfortable. And I had to build my confidence muscle, because you start to turn into that wallflower sometimes when your voice is not the loudest one. You don't have the bass in your voice where everyone else is talking, and you can get your point across, and then you start to feel discounted. So that becomes an internal battle that you have to get past. And that's what I work with my clients on as well. Most of my clients are women too, and helping them build that confidence muscle, but also helping them understand the importance of having a sponsor, someone who can help open doors for them, who can help talk well about them when they're not in the room, so they can get that leverage, they can get that respect. And also helping them understand that unfortunately, when women are in power and we, distribute that power or display that power rather, we're categorized in a negative light, versus when a man does it and he's considered powerful, he knows how to make decisions, he's a mover, he's a shaker, he's a rainmaker. But that still is not the case with women. So my hope and goal is that too will start to change, just as Anisa said, having more women around the table, having more people of color around the table, having women be able to own that power, speak that power, walk in that power, and not be viewed in a negative light.
That leads us to the next question. I love what I'm hearing. I'm taking all of this in myself. We're at the table. We are in upper management. We are our own entrepreneurs. Leadership versus boss. Is there a difference?
Yes.
Absolutely. I think we all would agree that it is the difference between being a leader and being a boss. I always say the first attribute of being a leader is you got to have people who follow you, right? Yes. So you are leading the pack and you turn around and there's nobody there, you're not really that much of a leader. Right? And how I believe you tap into that is I have a model that I use. If you imagine a Venn diagram, and I call it finding your sweet spot. And so you have this part where you have the organizational values, then you have your personal values, and that place in the middle where the person's individual, their personal values overlaps with the organizational values, that is the sweet spot. That is where magic happens. That is where you get, the greatest amount of engagement of your employees. That is where you get the greatest amount of retention, so your employees stay longer because they're happy to be there because their values are aligned with the values of the organization. So if you really want to be a leader, I believe tapping into that sweet spot, that's the difference between being a leader and a boss. A boss just tells you what to do and expects people to follow your direction based on your seat in the org chart. Those days are over. Millennials, they're not following you just because of your seat on the org chart. You have to really inspire your employees today.
Yeah, I think the days of positional leadership are way done. And when people just feel like, okay, I have this position, my title says account management. Okay, but that doesn't mean you're a leader. It doesn't automatically equate that you're a leader. And it requires specific efforts and skill sets to become a leader. One of the things that gets difficult is when a person was like some of my clients, they were great salespeople. So they were made a sales manager. Well, the problem is being able to translate what they did really well individually into being a people manager and being that leader of that team now. It's a completely different skill set than what they use to get the position. And so often you have to go through that process of helping them make that shift from being on their own to really working as a team and being a part of the team, and understanding that even though your last boss probably treated you in a manner that wasn't as a leader, but you need to take that step and be the leader of your team and begin to work with them instead of be that person that's constantly barking orders down to them just because you just were elevated because of a position title.
Sorry about that. I was going to just say, building on what Tracie was saying, what's interesting is I think that women who tend to be more relational rather than transactional are almost better suited, right, to be in leadership positions or management positions, or because we tend to value the relationship and we're willing to work and engage people and really tap into their strengths and skill sets. So I just wanted to add that to what Tracie was saying, because it's not the positional power now, it's the personal power. And I think when I look at the workforce of the future and where we're at, and I'm not sure if this was Anisa that had referenced this, but that, you know, people are our best resource. And here's the fact of the matter. If you look at the workforce coming in, it's a lot smaller than the workforce that's going out. And we have to do everything we can to build relationships and retain those people. And and I'm sure you've all heard this, and people don't leave companies.
That's right.
Leave bad managers. So I will pass that over to you. Is it Tanya? Or
Tana.
Tana, sorry.
That's okay.
Tana.
And you're right, absolutely. And in addition to that, I would say that you don't need a title to be a leader, right? So if you are in a position where you can inspire people, where you can share knowledge, where you can help develop and help people grow, those are the skills that really dictate a leader versus a boss. A boss is there. They don't have their sleeves rolled up. They're not in the trenches with their team. As you said, they're barking the orders down. They're telling you do this, do that. Versus someone who is in a leadership position or even viewed as a leader of a team. They're the ones that are distinguishing those types of characteristics of someone that people want to follow. So Anisa, you're right. You know, if you look behind you, there's no one following you. That's a sign. You know, if you leave a company and someone says, take me with you, or if you go to manage a different team and they want to be a part of your team and they kind of follow you through your path, through your career, that's a sign that you're a good leader. You have some good leadership skills, that people see something in you, they're growing underneath you, and they don't want to let that go. That to me is one of the key differences as well.
This is not one of the questions that we submitted to you, but I'm listening to you all's answers, and I'm curious myself. On a global scale, where do you see women in leadership on a global scale? Now that we've made the difference between leadership and a boss, where do you see women on a global scale?
I'll get us started. I mean, I personally think that when I look at leaders and when I talk to women who are aspiring leaders, I tell them the sky is the limit, because we really need people who have the relationship skills, the people skills, the communication skills, the organizational skills. Let's face it, we all are usually pretty good at multitasking, right? When I look at what the workforce needs to move ahead and to move forward, I see women, and I tell women it's their opportunity to leverage or to lose. And so what I encourage them to do is to take a hard look at themselves, to assess themselves and say, okay, here are the skill sets I have. The days of fixing, or focusing on the weakness, those are gone. Figure out how to leverage your unique gifts. You know, early on in my career, I still am, not only early on, but I've gotten better, tended to be soft-spoken. And at first I was always trying to fix that. And then someone took me aside and said, you know what, that can be an asset. Let's figure out how to make that work for you. Now, obviously I've developed my speaking skills, but look at what is unique that you bring to the table, figure out how to leverage it and use that to catapult your career, because we need more women at the table, because we lead in a different way, we think in a different way, and we get things done in a different way. And as we all know, the studies show, when you have more women in leadership, guess what? Company does better.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yes.
You know what? I actually have a chapter in my book that I titled, Do You Delegate the Rest? And it speaks to everything you just said, Regina, because it's about really figuring out, what do you do great? What is it that you do really well? Stop trying to do everything. Do you, and then develop your team to do what they do well. And the sky's the limit. You can go anywhere from there. And so you have to really be able to, in many ways, check your ego. Because often that's the issue. Because you fear that they may do it better than you. You fear that they may shine brighter than you. But the truth of the matter is, it's your team. You should want them to shine. Their shine makes your shine brighter.
Right. I
So
love that.
really, really think about that. You should embrace developing more people. And I began, initially at one point, the whole conversation around millennials and them feeling entitled. Well, I raised a millennial, and I will admit that I'm part of the reason he feels entitled, because I didn't want him to have to go through what I went through. So now he feels like he should live the life he lived when he was in my house, now that he's on his own. And that's just not realistic, because he's not making that kind of money. And so when you see them in the workplace and they're trying to demand more from their managers because they want to do more. That's where women can come into play, because we build that relationship. And it's easier for women to be able to build and bridge that gap between those of us who are not millennials with those of us that are, that will help us continue to take our companies global, because they understand social media better than we do. Because trust me, I didn't know. My sisters did my stuff for many years before I ever fully understood how to operate in social media. So we have to begin to tap our young women to help us continue to grow companies and really take things to that next level globally.
I like what you said about millennials, because that's what I was thinking from the very beginning, is millennials got it, right? And I think as women of a certain age, I won't say how old I am. I have very good lighting going on over here.
You look gorgeous, girl.
It's all lighting, it's smoke and mirrors. but one of the things that I say they have is they come into the workplace with confidence, and they don't see barriers, and they don't see reasons why they can't do something. They want to understand, how can I get it done? What do I need to do? What mountain do I need to move? And I admire that about them, because they have the chutzpah that I didn't have at that age coming into the workforce. So I think as women of a certain age, as you said, kind of reaching back to the millennial women, helping them understand some of the things that we've gone through, being very transparent and authentic about that. Yeah, they may scratch their head and say, why'd you do that? Explain to them why. What was the infrastructure and the system that was in place? So therefore, they don't fall into that same trap. And when they see it coming, they can address it sooner rather than later, and not bow down or be quiet or docile about it. But stand in their power. And that's one of the things that I think is really going to change the workforce globally, are these millennial women coming in, because they have that in their DNA. And they come from women fabulous like us, so.
Woohoo!
Oh my goodness. So what I'm hearing is, let's take the millennials up under our wing, and let's groom them so that they can catapult all of us forward.
That's right.
That's it.
All right.
That's
all
it.
right. That takes me to the next question. To be an excellent leader, out of the many qualities that we must possess, what is the one quality that you absolutely must possess?
Okay, I'll jump on this one first. We've been talking a lot about relationships and how building relationships is so important as a leader. Well, the key element for me is one of honesty and integrity. If your team can't trust what you say and trust that you're going to do what you say, you won't have anybody following you. No one's going to follow you if they can't trust you. The foundation of the relationship that you have with your team is grounded in them being able to trust that you are exactly who you say you are, and you're going to do exactly what you say you're going to do. That level of transparency that I went through in corporate America during those periods of all these different layoffs. I got laid off three times in like a 6-year period. And every time I knew it kind of was about to happen, but when I went to leadership and asked, I was told, no, everything's good. Everything's great. Oh, well, the company's getting bought, or they're selling this brand off, and now you don't have a job. And so now I don't trust you. So in order for you to be a great leader, they got to be able to trust you.
That's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, you got to walk the walk and talk the talk, and that's one of that's the main characteristic. People want to believe that what they're seeing you display in the workplace is what they can trust, that is reliable and dependable. So yeah, exactly what Tracie said. Walk the walk and talk the talk.
And I would add, absolutely walk the walk, absolutely talk the talk. And then you have to be able to connect with your employees. You got to be able to understand their individual motivations for coming into that workplace and doing that job for you. You got to know what makes them tick. And that takes time. And so in any work situation, you have this triangle, if you would, and if you have the task that needs to be done, you have the processes by which you do the task, and then you have the relationship component. And I think that many managers, right, they focus and place their emphasis on that task that needs to be done, whatever those steps are to do it, that process, and they miss this like golden place, this area of relationship where you really can go in and connect with the person. Because if you unlock it, you don't have to stand over with a whip, right? If you understand what motivates them, they're going to come in, they're going to do a good job for you. They're going to come in and do a great job for you. So I think in addition to what Tracie and Tana said regarding having that integrity and having that trust, it's also being able to connect with, to motivate and inspire your employees as well.
So I agree with what everyone said. And I'm going to add one piece to that. What I find is that where a lot of leaders fall down is they look, but they don't see. They hear, but they don't listen. And I think if you want to have all of those components where people feel that you're a person of honesty, integrity, if you want them to feel that they can trust you, if you want them to engage you, just like Anisa had said, you gotta listen. And I think a lot of times leaders feel like they have to know everything, and then their egos get in the way and they don't hear anything. And there's a lot of danger in that because they become blind to what's really going on, and they become blind to how to really engage and connect with people. So I'm going to say that you really have to learn how to listen, because when you listen, even if you make a decision that people don't like, they will be more accepting of that because they will have been heard. And I don't know what the percent is or the statistic, but there is a statistic out there that says that's one of the number one things that employees want. They want to be heard. So I'm going to leave it with listen.
We heard it from the experts. This has been a fabulous time. I tell you, anyone who's online and they're listening right now, you all have poured into us. I thank you. I thank you. Tracie L. James, Regina Barr, Anisa, Rashad, and Tana M. Session. Thank you, ladies. This was awesome and wonderful. If you like what you heard, everybody who's listening, October 20th and the 21st, you will have an opportunity to glean more wisdom and insight from these ladies. So go to WomELLE.com for all information and do purchase your ticket. I always tell everyone, when you purchase that ticket, you're buying yourself a passport. So we will be back next Wednesday with another discussion, another conversation from other members of the WomELLE cast. I'm Margo, Lovett. Thank you all for joining us. Bye-bye.
Everyone.
Bye.